Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Frenemies. Not joined, as always, by David Swar. I am joined this week by Matt Kerns. And Matt, thanks, buddy, for stepping in this week. For David, I really appreciate it. David is somewhere on the East Coast, and rumor has it he's spending some time with his boy A-Rod. Since he broke up with J-Lo, A-Rod has had more time on his hands to hang out. And David got A-Rod's number from our former teammate, Paul Peoples, who's a real close friend of A-Rod's. So David has gone to Wrigley to celebrate with him. As you can tell, David is now a Cubs fan. I'm so proud of him. He's been doing a great job of learning how to finally pick a great team in the MLB. It's also a rumor that David will possibly become a model for A-Rod's new makeup line. So keep in touch on this little friendship going on here, Matt. Not sure what's really going on, but maybe we can get some stories on Tuesday when David's back, buddy.
Yeah. I can't pay you for putting that picture
up. Oh, man. So, David, man, we miss you. This is like the first time we've ever done this without you, but I had to include you somehow. So there you are, buddy. You are involved in this podcast like always. You're just in the background this time. So Matt is our expert on the Cincinnati Reds, and it's been a while since we've talked about the Reds on this podcast, to be honest with you. So I was excited about talking about them tonight on the podcast and just kind of getting a little bit of an update on how the Reds are doing. So Matt, why don't you take over and give us little weekly update of how the Reds are doing and like a season update as well.
Sure. Well, okay. So broad spectrum on the season. They started out kind of lightning in a bottle out of the gate there. And I kind of thought we were going to take over the world there for a hot minute, but then they kind of drifted back to reality. And that's kind of how the season's been since then. It's just been a bunch of up and downs. They'll, have a streak of games where they'll play really well, and then they'll have a streak of game or series of games where they'll just not play so well and they'll get dominated. And they've done really well in the month of June. I just heard on the broadcast tonight that they're 15-10 in June. To put them, they're currently one game over 500, but they're right now losing to the Padres. So that would take them back to 500. That kind of seems to be their MO here is get to 500, lose a couple games, get back to 500, lose a couple games. In all honesty, it's probably been a pretty good season for them to this point. Just the fact that the injuries that they've had to deal with, they've really put together a lot of guys that are rookies that are contributing to the team. Their starting rotation has been decimated with injuries. They've got two guys in the rotation right now that are rookies. Jonathan India starting at second base. They've just got a lot of guys right now that are contributing that are young. And hopefully by the time the season keeps going on here, that they'll get some of the Moustakas and guys back like that, Senzel, and they'll be able to put it together. But specifically the last week, they had 6 games the past week. They went 4-2, which is pretty good for them. They had a 10-7 win over the Twins on Tuesday last week, and then we're off Wednesday, and then they started a series with the Braves that went a 4-game series, and they split that with the Braves. And I'll be honest, like I told you before we started, I've been really busy with work and stuff, but I was really surprised at how bad the Braves are struggling this year with their record. And I know they've dealt with some injuries as well, but they ended up splitting the series with the Braves, and I felt pretty good about it, honestly, considering that this is the team that blanked them last year in the playoffs. So, and then last night they were actually losing to the Phillies. And Castiano hits a grand slam to put them ahead, and then the bats just started cracking, and they ended up winning 12-4 last night. So again, they're playing the Padres tonight. They were losing 5-1. Now it's 5-4. Who knows what will happen with that? But it's hard again. This team has always been that team that it's hard to put your finger on a pulse of them, like what's going on with them. It's really hard to tell. I mean, they're 4-6 their last 10 games. They were doing really well. They went to St. Louis and swept the Cardinals in St. Louis, and then unfortunately had to go play the Padres and got swept by the Padres in San Diego. So they just can't seem to get that momentum going that pushes them over the top or makes that surge like for example the Brewers are doing right now. So all in all, I'd say that's kind of their season in a nutshell.
So I had a couple questions for you about the Reds. There's a couple things that I wanted to kind of bring up to you to kind of get your perspective on. I know that, like we were talking about, the Reds are 6 back of the Brewers right now and just 2 back of the Cubs, since Cubs have been struggling here the last few games and kind of caught up to the Cubs a little bit here, and the Cardinals are dropping off a little bit. So a couple guys I wanted to mention here, just a little bit different. Eugenio Suarez, 16 bombs, 44 ribbies, and a 175 batting average. You look at a guy like Winker, who's got the same amount of homers basically at 18, same amount of ribbies basically at 46, but is batting 324. I mean,
Yeah.
You talk about similarities, but yet so far different as far as the hitting perspective goes in those two players. And then talk a little bit more about Castellanos with 50 ribbies this year so far. Those three guys, RBI production is unbelievable. Tyler Naquin, 46 ribbies. So those 4 guys, give a little perspective on those guys.
Okay, well, the first one you mentioned was Winker, or Suarez, I'm sorry. He's notoriously come out as a slow starter as far as the average goes. And David Bell, honestly, has kind of flipped him all over this lineup to try to get him going. And he hit a little sprout there where he was doing pretty good, but he's still struggling. I don't think he's seeing the ball that well. He's got a lot of holes in his swing. He's striking out a lot. And when he makes contact, it's normally good, but that's the problem. He's not making contact. So will he pull it together or not? I don't know. But I mean, he's still been a productive player, unfortunately, in this weird scenario where you've got a guy batting 160, but he's still producing runs, and it's really strange. And just to kind of give you some perspective on the rest of those guys you were talking about, let's talk about Tyler Naquin first. Oof. This is a guy that he's not playing every day. He's playing sometimes 2, 3 times a week, maybe.
Wow.
And he has really made the most of his time, his playing time, by producing. He there for a long time was leading the team in RBIs. I think Castellanos has overtaken him now, but even if you look at his games played compared to anybody else on the Reds, he's not going to be at the top. So he really came out of nowhere. He wasn't expected really to be much but a 5th outfielder from my perspective, and he's really come through big for them in quite a few stretches there. He's kind of carried the team offensively. I know there was one game he had 7 RBIs, and then Castellanos matched him last night. But talking about the 2 guys, Winker and Castellanos, I knew we were going to talk about the Cubs, so I hate to jump a little bit here, but I was looking, the Cubs leading hitter is Chris Bryant at 261, and the Reds have 2 guys that are over 320. And I'm just wondering how are the Cubs doing it and the Reds not able to sustain it. But, Winker has really kind of been a pleasant surprise. He had a kind of a power surge last year that was unexpected. I don't think anybody really ever projected him as a power hitter. And he's really improved his contact. He's quite honestly turning into one of the most feared hitters, I think, in the National League. And you just have to attribute that to hard work, is what I guess you would say. I mean, I don't know what else to say. He's really stepped up his game the last couple of years, and he's really been productive. And then Nick Castellanos, what can you say about that guy, man? He's just a stud. He's the heart and soul of the team, in my opinion. He's the kind of guy that you want to have on the team, that kind of is the emotional leader as well. He kind of gets the people going, the crowd going, and he's really lived up to the hype. I knew he would have a bounce back year. We didn't get to talk about it much when we did our Reds preview, but statistically, he had his worst season last year and he was still productive. Talking about Suarez, kind of same thing. Castellanos had the worst year of his career and still did what he did last year. So I knew he was in for a good year. I didn't expect him to hit 350 and do what he's done at the plate, but he's really just been the heart and soul of this team.
So we were talking about a lot. Me and you talked specifically a lot about Suarez and David too. We were talking in our text chat there about didn't Suarez, if I'm not mistaken, this has been before the season maybe, didn't he talk about how he wanted to increase home run production this year, and maybe that's why his batting average is below my weight currently? So I don't know what in the world happened to him. He's not a 175 hitter by no means, or stretch of the imagination, but you think that can contributes to the batting average a little bit?
I'm sure. I mean, I kind of feel he probably made a lot of those statements given the fact that they struggled so bad offensively last year that he was probably trying to be a leader and step up and make a bold statement like, hey, I'm going to do this. But unfortunately, sometimes when you do those type of things, there's repercussions. And when you try to hit home runs, you're apt to either go big or go home, and a lot of times just go home. So, he's a guy that's always, struck out, but like you said, he's not a 161 hitter, but he's never been a 300 type hitter either. He's more in the 240, 250 range, if he's having a good year. But I think, end of the year, he'll probably, fingers crossed, be above the Mendoza line. But it's kind of, shocking, honestly, that, well, I shouldn't say it's shocking, but it's going to become interesting to see if Bell continues to run him out there. Or if, like, for example, when Moustakas gets back, if Moustakas moves to third, India stays at second, and then Suarez, is taking, some less games off there, so he can get some perspective, which may help him. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I couldn't believe it. So switching over to the pitching aspect a little bit here, there's a few things I was kind of shocked at going through the stats here. Luis Castillo, 3-10 with a 5.14 ERA, and you got Sonny Gray at 1-4 with a 3.42 ERA. Amir Garrett, 7.71 ERA. And these are, when you think of the Reds pitching, you think of those three right away as being the guys. The Amir being your bullpen guy, Gray and Castillo being your two starters that are studs. And it's been Tyler Mahle and Wade Miley. Those are the two guys carrying them right now. And what in the world is going on there? That's completely the opposite of what everybody thinks.
Yeah, Castillo started out the season kind of getting rocked pretty hard there. He actually, I know the 5 ERA doesn't sound good, but at one time it was closer to 9. So he's really picked it up. There's been speculation, and I don't know. I mean, obviously nobody knows, but there's been some speculation I've seen on some things that he may have some personal issues going on. Who knows what the situation is? But even watching the games, you would hear the broadcasters say, he was missing his release point. He was doing this and doing that, leaving pitches over the plate. He was just making mistakes that you can't make, and mistakes that you wouldn't expect him to make as the ace of the staff. He's really, like I said, the last couple of starts picked it back up and looks more like the Luis Castillo that we expect. Sonny Gray is just, not pitched bad. He's just he's been struggling with injuries all year. He started out the year on the IL and then came and started and contributed and then got hurt again. So he's actually supposed to come back, I believe, Friday and pitch against somebody at the Brewers. Maybe I can't remember who they're playing Friday, but anyway, he's supposed to come back and contribute. So that's going to be huge for them because, right, like I said, right now they've got two guys who are rookies that are virtually unheard of that are in the rotation right now that are actually doing a pretty decent job, but they're not Sonny Gray. So, getting that guy back is going to be huge. And as far as Amir Garrett goes, that guy just, he started out the season rough and he's pretty much been rough all year, honestly. This was a guy that I thought was going to be, the guy that would get the ball in the 9th inning for him, and he just is not. Every time he's had that opportunity, he's just kind of choked it away. So
last question on the Reds, Matt. I got one more for you. What Do you think that this team is legit and can contend, or do you think that they're just going to stay kind of where they're at and just kind of sit in the middle of the pack in the division and not make a playoff run? What are your thoughts as a fan?
As a fan, I think yes, they can compete. To me, they're exceeding expectations at the moment based on the current roster. Once if they were to be at 100% health, I think that they would be right there with the Cubs and Brewers as far as talent. It's just a matter of, is that going to happen? And you never know how injuries are going to play out. Votto was on the IL for a month. Not that he's tearing up the world, but he's still, a veteran and a good presence at the plate, and he's been productive. His batting average isn't what it needs to be, but he's kind of doing the Suarez thing. He's still driving in runs and getting on base. So yeah, I think that they can be a contributor or a contender. It's going to be interesting to see if they do make that move to kind of push them over the top, or if they just kind of stand pat. And I think a lot of that will just have to do on the health situation of the roster. They're really missing Mike Moustakas' bat, to be honest with you. He's not been healthy all year. So
yeah, Moustakas is a big hole in that lineup. There's a few guys on the DL right now for the Reds, like you're saying. If they can get some help here and get some guys back, watch out. And they're coming up on the Cubs here. Out of nowhere, the Cardinals have fallen out, which I think me and you both love the fact that they're about to go down there with the Pirates and chill out.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I love that so much, man. Well, I'll give you the rundown of the week for the Cubs. Cubs fans, Tuesday, the Cubs beat the Indians 7-1. Jock Peterson and Wilson Contreras each had 2 RBI for the Cubs. KB scores 2 runs. Kyle Hendricks yet again dominates, going 6 innings with 5 Ks, 4 hits, no runs, and no walks allowed. Tyler Chafin, Tepera, and Winkler equal good night from the bullpen. Much needed W to split the series 1-1 with the Indians. Day off Wednesday, moving on to Thursday. The Cubs win the first game versus the Dodgers. I'm not sure if you saw this, Matt, but this is a 4-0 win by the Cubs, which is the first time in MLB history for the Cubs that they had a combined no-hitter. They have had 16 individual no-hitters in the wild history that they've had, dating back to the beginning of time, 1876 for the Cubs. This is the first combined no-hitter. Zach Davies threw 6, Ryan Tepera threw 1, Andrew Chafin 1, Craig Kimbrell threw 1, all combining for a no-no. Unbelievable. It was a great game. Davies was up to 93 pitches after the 6th. I was watching the game. I'm like, there's no way he's going to go back out there because pitch count was way too high. So you put yourself in, that's an easy one for a manager. It's kind of when they're like at 100 and after the 7th, you're like, oh gosh, now what do I do? 93 after 6, that was easy. So Ross made a good call on that. Andrew Chafin, I don't know if you saw this or not, but he said that the bullpen had no idea that it was a no-hitter when they came into the game till after the game. I guess they started attacking Kimbrell, and I don't know if he knew why they were even attacking him so much, which is pretty funny, actually. But it kind of a little bit, I guess they say they can't see the scoreboard to where they know how many hits are going on in the game when they're in the bullpen. I think another reason is, when Davies walked 5 guys, and I think the 3 relievers each walked a guy. So there's 8 walks in that game. So It's a little hard to understand you're in a no-hitter when there's 8 walks in the game. So that's probably how you lose perspective of the fact you're getting no hit. Maybe even some of the hitters on the other side, it'd be interesting to see if they even knew because of all the walks. But not ideal with all the walks, but they still pitched really well, still threw the shutout. So that's all that matters, really. Really cool. A lot of fun. Baez had a bomb off of Buehler in the first inning. That's all they really needed. And then Contreras had a 2-run shot in the 6th. Jock got his World Series ring. That was cool to see before the game since they were out in L.A. And his brother got one as well, which is really cool. His brother's got Down syndrome, and he's a really good fan of Jock's. And they gave him a ring as well, which was really, really cool to see and a class move by the Dodgers. So moving on to Friday, this is where it gets ugly, Matt, and has been ugly since Friday, which is not good, and it was a big reason why we're so far behind right now. So a loss 6-2 to the Dodgers. Bryant hits a bomb in the first, and Jock hits his 33rd ribby of this season, and that's the only 2 runs we got. Arrieta gives you his normal 5 innings with 2 earned runs. That's about what he does for us now. Good outing, but just not long enough. Tepera had a rare bad outing, giving up 2 earned and 0.1 innings pitched. Game was 2-2 till A.J. Pollock hit a 2-run homer in the 8th, and then Max Muncy also hit a 2-run bomb in the 8th. Game over. Big L. Saturday was a tough game. Not sure if you saw this. 3-2 loss to the Dodgers. Rizzo and Happ with the lone RBI for the Cubs. My problem with this game, Matt, is that Jason Hayward hits a bomb near the foul pole. And initially, the umpire's doing this, like circling his finger, the home run call. They get together, and somebody overturned him and said it's not a homer, it was a foul ball. So Ross challenges it, and they go to video and still call it a foul ball. The ball visibly goes behind the foul pole. It was a fair ball, man. I don't know what in the world they were looking at. I'll be interested. It would be nice to have a headset on when stuff like that happens so you can see, like, what am I not seeing? Because I see it go behind the foul pole, and I don't know what in the world they were looking at. Change the whole perspective of the game. No home run. Instead of bringing Kimbrel in there to close the game, now we're bringing in, a different pitcher. Thompson comes in, and Bellinger just destroys the ball. I'll tell you what, Matt, that guy does not get cheated on his swing, man. Wow, he swing a bat hard. So very violent, full swing, game over, tough loss, should have won that game. Sunday, 7-1 loss to the Dodgers, dropping 3 of 4 in the series, not good. Dodgers got 6 in the bottom of the second off Edbert Alzolay, who's not pitching well recently. And it was over basically from there. 4.55 ERA for Alzolay, not good at all. Baez had the lone RBI and a homer off of Kershaw. Kershaw dominated this game, Matt. 13 Ks, 8 innings pitched, 4 hits. Shows why he's a first ballot Hall of Famer yet again. Unbelievable performance by Kershaw. Cubs take a tough loss there. Monday, first game of a big series with the Brewers, who, we needed this game since we were 3 back going into this game. Now we lost this one. We're 4 back going into tonight. Lost 14-4. Tied 4-4 in the bottom of the 8th when they scored 10 runs, which sometimes that happens when the teams tend to get a couple runs. You just kind of let it bleed, man, because you got to save pitching for the next night. It gets out of hand. Is what it is. Doesn't feel any better if you lose by 10 or if you lose by 1, to be honest with you. I've always said that. Doesn't really matter how it happens. A loss is a loss. Stinks no matter what. But a tough one nonetheless. Eric Sogard comes in and starts pitching at the end of that game. So when you get position players throwing, that's always fun. He gave up a hit and got the out. So, yes, he did his job. 50% of the batters he faced, he got out. So that was good. But tough week for the Cubs, who are now 4 back, who were in first place last Tuesday. So not a good week for them at all. Cubs notes real quick. Andy Green is the Cubs bench coach. Just want to give him a little love real quick. When David Ross took the job over, it's awesome to have a guy who had 4 years as a manager as your bench coach. That goes a long way. He can run things off of him. He's been through the fire, in 4 years. Poor Andy Green obviously didn't get the Padres, who went off in the offseason and just got everybody. He got a pretty bad Padres team to coach, but nonetheless, he's been a manager for 4 years. So having him is a big difference to David Ross, and I believe a lot of reason why David Ross is having so much success right now. A lot of that is Andy Green's help. 5 Cubs are finalists for the All-Star game. Rizzo, Baez, Bryant, Peterson, and Contreras. Looks like Bryant might be the only lock for the game. The rest will be determined later on. Starters are announced on Thursday. The rest of the squad will come out on Sunday. Be interesting to see how many Cubs make the team. My guess is 2, definitely KB, and then I think a random guy will get in there somehow. But if they're looking for somebody, there's about 7 bullpen guys that deserve it in the Cubs bullpen who are absolutely dominant this year. So, Matt, from your perspective now, what is your perspective of the Cubs so far this year, and anything you have to add to them?
Well, I was going to ask you, I actually was watching that no-hitter game. I didn't watch it all, but I was watching the first probably 5 or 6 innings before I called it a night here in West Virginia. But how in the world does Zach Davies not get lit up every time he pitches, man? That guy is – he brings no velocity or anything. I just don't know if it's like the psych out of for the hitters, like they know that it's slow and they just are waiting to crush it. And I can't figure it out. Like even when he pitched with the Brewers, every time he would pitch against the Reds, I think, man, we're going to light this guy up. And somehow or another, he seems to find a way to eke his way through and get through. So anyway, back to my perspective is quite honestly, how are they doing it? Because again, like we talked about, I'm looking at the team leaders. You've got nobody batting over 260, but Bryant. Your starters aren't really tearing it up. You've got Hendricks is solid. You've got Arrieta. No, he's not. You've got Davies. He's okay. He's dependable. But how are they doing it? Is the bullpen just really pitched that well for them, or? And
yeah,
I guess
the bullpen's been unbelievable. It's been lights out. I mean, 6 or 7 guys out of that bullpen have been unhittable all year long, and that's a huge part of the reason why we're having the success we're having. Because Arrieta's only going to give you 5. Hendricks had a bad April and has been dominant since then. Davies has been consistently, pretty solid. Azalai not doing it for me anymore. So, I mean, you're right, man. It's so hard when you look at everything that's going on to understand why they're in the hunt, why up until now they've been in first place the whole time. Kind of blows you away a little bit because they're not hitting the ball great. They do hit a lot of home runs. They're knocking in a lot of runs from the guys that they should be knocking in runs. So the batting average is terrible on this team. It has been for a few years now. They rely on the walk and the homer. It's just kind of what they do. And then, when you get a good combination of if Arrieta, like for instance, can give you 5, which he's been doing a good job of, and then they go to 4 studs in the bullpen, that's game over. And if Hendricks is pitching 7 and then they just got to use 2 of them, that's game over. So that's kind of how they're surviving, I guess, so to speak. They're starting to get some guys back healthy now too. They've been really banged up this year. That's another reason why I don't know how they're doing it. But when you got guys coming out of the woodworks like Patrick Wisdom, I mean, where'd that guy come from? And all of a sudden he's killing the ball and winning Player of the Week and all kinds of stuff. And Jake Marisnik and guys they didn't really rely on or think we're going to get a lot of playing time kind of are right now. And it's been crazy, man. But it's interesting to hear your perspective on kind of the same thing I'm thinking. Like, how are we even doing this?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Is this sustainable for them? Is this something that 2 months from now, are we going to feel the same way about the bullpen? Because how bullpens are. They're obviously there's some that are solid throughout the year, but a lot of times there's ups and downs with those bullpens, and especially if you're getting a lot of innings out of them. The Reds kind of have struggled a lot and lost a lot of games because of the bullpen. Yeah. They really have shuffled some guys in and out of there. They don't, they really only added Sean Doolittle to the bullpen, and which I thought was a good move at the time for his veteran leadership and presence. But man, he's not really been good. But it's just the bullpens are just one of those things that they kind of ebb and flow. And so I just think are they putting too much pressure on that bullpen? Do you think it's going to be able to withstand it, or is it going to be one of those situations where they hit one of those like they are right now, where they're 3-7 their last 10 games? Are they going to hit a couple of those and fall out of contention, or is it something where they make a move? Or I just don't know. But for me as a fan, I'm looking at the roster and I'm looking at the stats and I'm saying, how are they doing it? Because quite honestly, if you look at the Reds statistics compared to those guys, you would think, man, these guys are 5 games ahead of them, and it's the exact opposite. So
yep. Yeah, you're totally right about that.
I mean, good for them for making the most of the situation. I mean, that's what the Reds don't do. So good for them for that. But I guess as an observer, I would just wonder if that's really sustainable for them, and if that's something that they're really going to be able to maintain throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, I thought about that too with the bullpen, especially when you're riding them so hard like we have been, and you're using your main guys a lot to get those wins and stay in this thing. How much more are they going to have in the tank? We're just about to hit the halfway point of the season, and by this time next week, we will have hit that and gone past it a little bit, the midway point of the year already. So, these guys have been relied upon heavily out in that bullpen. That's, both good and bad from certain perspectives, I guess. The good perspective being that they know they can do it. The bad perspective is, can they hold up with their arms all year long and do this thing, coming off of a short season last year. So, like you said, it'll be interesting to see how the stamina of every team really holds off going into a full season this year and a full playoff, like a completely normal season. If teams are going to, fall off due to fatigue, or if teams are going to hang in there due to being ready to go. So definitely an interesting scenario, man. Good point by you as well. Yeah. So Matt, let's turn the tides a little bit here. Wanted to go over real quick here. We'll just talk about the College World Series last night. There's some interest here from the MLB perspective of the Vanderbilt team having 2 top 10 draft picks on their team, and both are pitchers. And last night, I don't know if you got the chance to watch the game at all, a little bit of it, Matt, or see the highlights or anything. 8-2 win by Vandy over Mississippi State. Jack Leiter, who is the son of Al Leiter, who pitched in the MLB forever, was dominant last night. He's the nation's K leader, so he's got the most Ks in college baseball. Gives up 2 runs on 3 hits and 8 Ks in 6 innings pitched. 49-16 is Vanderbilt's record this year, which is outstanding. They got 7 runs in the first inning off of Mississippi State's lefty pitcher that came in there. I'm not sure they got all 7 off of him, but they got a good chunk of those off of him. I'll tell you what, there's a couple things here, man. These college fans, first of all, these college games, man, they last forever. They go like 50 seconds in between pitches. It's unbelievable, man. Like, if you're not a baseball fan, don't send somebody to a college game to watch a college game to try to get them hooked, because, man, you're going to be there for 4 hours watching these games. So I always record the college games because I know they're going to take forever, and then fast forward to commercials. You have to do it that way. You're going to sit there forever, man. And so, Vandy fans like had this whistle that they do throughout the game. It is so annoying. You hear it on the broadcast. They're like whistling like crazy. It's like, will you please shut up? And then Mississippi State's got the cowbell, which I mean, everybody needs more cowbell in their life, but not for 9 innings, man. So I don't know what the heck that is. It's very annoying. But it's the finals. It's really cool, man, to watch this. These are intense games. Omaha's a lot of fun. One of these days I want to get to the game, and it's on my bucket list to get there. So Vandy is up, and to be honest with you, man, they don't look like they're going to get beat in this series. There's no way. With Jack Leiter pitching and Kumar Rocker, who's also a top 10 prospect, possibly pitching game 3 if there is one. It looks like Vandy's got this all wrapped up. They won it 19. There was no season last year, so they're going to go back to back, hopefully. And then it'll be unbelievable, man. So one other note I wanted to add on this college, and I'll get your perspective a little bit on this too, is I don't know if you saw as well, those poor guys from NC State, man, they were in the Final Four against Vandy, had their season eliminated because of COVID. Man, I thought this was all over. What a joke. I feel so bad for those college guys. Could you possibly, Matt, imagine being on that team and you've worked your whole life and you're in the Final Four of college baseball and they pull the rug underneath you and tell you you're done, man? I'm heartbroken for them. I really am. It really breaks my heart if you put you put yourself in their shoes and just imagine like what are they thinking right now? Like, they've got to be all the emotions just hitting them right now. It's a terrible situation. Everything about it stinks. But that's where we're at right now with the college game. Final 2 are there. And it looks like Vandy's going to take it, and we'll see what happens tonight in game 2. So what's your perspective, Matt?
I'm gonna pull a Lee Corso here and say, not so fast, my friends. So actually, I was just looking at the score while you were talking. That Mississippi State's actually winning 5-1 right now in game 2.
There you go.
So it's baseball and it is a game, so anything can happen. But yeah, I'll be pulling for Vandy as well. I'm familiar with Leiter, like we talked about yesterday, and the other guys I'm not familiar with, and I honestly haven't watched any college baseball in years. But yeah, it's always good when you have some guys that are future MLB stars that are in that arena that you kind of get acclimated to and kind of make a name for themselves there and before they come up to the show, so to speak. But yeah, I mean it's a 5-1 game right now, so who knows what's going to happen here.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if Mississippi State holds off to win it. We're going to see Rocker in Game 3, and that'll be fun as well. So he's also going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. So yeah, man, we're going to throw a few guys out there in our podcast coming up here until the draft at the beginning of July. There, just throwing a few names out there for people to keep an eye on. Some of your teams that could be at the top of the draft. These are guys that are being looked at very heavily to be in the draft. So I can't remember where the Reds picked, but I think that they got a pretty high pick coming up here. So, and the draft has changed a little bit, Matt, over the years. And I don't know how you feel about this too. And one more, we'll get off this subject here, but just getting on the draft a little bit. So I'm always a firm believer, so to speak. Like if I got a stud shortstop or Jack Leiter, I'm probably taking the shortstop, man. I want to draft in the first round a position player, and the Cubs have done this a lot, that's going to be in the everyday lineup for the next 10 years as opposed to a pitcher. And the pitchers are hit or miss, man. It just is what it is. I mean, I hate to say it about Leiter, but when's he going to get Tommy John? It's going to happen, And so I don't know if maybe he's already had it, but eventually he's going to if he hasn't yet. And so do you take your risk on those guys? Has Rocker had Tommy John? Do you look at that when you're drafting somebody? Have they already gone through the surgery? I mean, that's something you have to look at anymore because they're all going to hit it. If they throw over 95, at some point they're going to get it. So what's your perspective on that? If you had a top 10 pick, which route would you go?
Yeah, I never really thought about it until you mentioned it, but it does make a lot of sense to go with the guy that would be an everyday type player. But I think it's kind of like quarterbacks in the NFL. Everybody's trying to hit the lottery there, so to speak. Yeah. And so it's kind of the same way with a starter. You kind of feel like if somebody has a little bit of extraordinary talent, that you're going to take that chance that's going to, pay big dividends for you in the future. And so a guy like Leiter, I think you probably would take a chance on because of the pedigree and what you see when he pitches. But yeah, that does make sense to, some guys that maybe not as highly touted, maybe you pass on them for, a solid position player. I mean, I can definitely understand the logic there. I think it depends a lot on the makeup of your team and your organization and the depth chart that you have there. But I think, it's hard for me not to treat it like fantasy a lot of times, because you want to pick the guys that are going to fill out your roster the best. But there is a lot to be said about what you just made. The point you just made, who's to say that these pitchers are going to even make it, for one, and then two, if they do make it, how long are they going to be able to throw? It's kind of like a running back in the NFL. You get a running back for 5 years and that's it. And so yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I haven't really thought about it until you just brought it up. But yeah, I think with a guy like Leiter, I think you're gonna throw that dart and hopefully get it big with him.
Yeah, I think of all the pitchers, Leiter's the one guy more than Kumar Rocker for sure. Leiter's the guy that's very hard to pass up if you're thinking pitching. I got to go with him number one for sure. Position players, I'd go with many of them over Rocker. Just not too sure about him. I think he's got high ceiling, but not too sure how his arm's going to hold up. But it's going to be interesting draft coming up here in about a little under 2 weeks, I believe. So that'll be interesting to see what teams pick, and we'll definitely be giving you updates on some of the guys that do go from some of our teams that we like and everything like that. So that'll be a lot of fun, man. And so tonight, Matt, we'll end the podcast with going through the standings here and kind of getting your perspective a little bit about what's been going on so far. Like I talked about here when we were talking about the Cubs, we are just about at the halfway point of the season right now. And man, is there some crazy things going on with the standings. And so me and David talk about these every single week. So it'll be interesting to see your perspective on how everything's been lining up so far, and if you think people can sustain. So we will start in the American League East, Matt. So I'm going to go through the standings as 1 through 5, how their week went in their last 10, and then we'll kind of get into some of the pointers that have gone on for this week. So Boston is in first place 6-4 last 10. Tampa Bay drops to second place, 4-6 in their last 10. Toronto has moved into third place, 7-3 in the last 10. The Yankees have fallen to fourth, 4-6. Probably a big reason why Dave's on vacation right now. I can't stand to watch them anymore. And Baltimore bringing up the cellar like always, had a 2-8 last 10. So, Matt, give it to me, man. This is a stacked division 1-4. What are your thoughts so far in the American League East?
Well, my thoughts are how disappointing it must be to be 41-38 as the Yankees and be in fourth place.
Yeah,
that's pretty brutal. I mean, if you're in the National League somewhere, you're probably first or second in your division. But man, this is really kind of the cream of the crop here when it comes to the tight races. The Yankees obviously haven't had a bad season, but man, they're in fourth place, and we kind of talked about it in our Blue Jays preview podcast, whether the Blue Jays would make the playoffs or not, and I said that they would, and looking more like I'm right than what you guys thought. So we'll see if that continues or not. But it's been a competitive, race so far. I think personally, I'm a bit surprised at Boston. I didn't think they had the pitching to be there, and Tampa Bay just always surprises me with how they seem to always be there. It's kind of like you looking at the Cubs, like I was telling you, I just don't see how they're doing it, but they're doing it. So you got to respect them for that. And it's a very competitive division right now.
Sure is, man. Wander Franco looks like the real deal. Not sure if you got to see him play very much this past week. He started at shortstop tonight. I saw they were playing the Nationals, which the Rays and the Nationals, that's just a weird matchup to me. Interleague just gives you these crazy ones every once in a while. But yeah, man, Tampa Bay, like you said, I think when it's all said and done is going to be there at the end. I thought it was the Yankees before the season. Man, do they have their troubles going on right now? Just not a lot going very well for them right now. They're driving David nuts. He's calling for everybody to be fired. So when David's calling for everybody,
fantasy teams.
yeah. David's just trying to make trades in every one of his leagues, man, to get out of the cellar in the Chicago League and to try to get up there a little higher in the Temple League, man. He's wheeling and dealing, that's for sure, man. And I think he's hoping the Yankees will do the same here coming up at the end of the month. I asked him if Garrett Cole was available for the Cubs, and he said 300 million reasons why he's totally available. So it'll be interesting to see what they do at the trade deadline too. If they're going to hang out in fourth place, they got to do something. So not too sure what that will be, but it'll be very interesting to see at the end of July what the Yankees do and where they're at. So switching over to the AL Central, Matt, we got the White Sox in first place, 3-7 this past 10 games. Not good. Cleveland has caught up to them a little bit. They are 2 back with a 5-5 week. It's kind of disappointing they went 5-5 when the White Sox had a terrible last 10 games. So Cleveland did not make the most of it, but still caught up a little bit. Minnesota sneaks up to third place after being in the cellar, which isn't saying much in this division. 7-3 this week. 11.5 back. Detroit is 12 back, 5-5 this week. Kansas City is also 12 back at 3-7. So we knew Detroit and Kansas City would struggle, no doubt. But what are your thoughts on the Twins, Matt? Holy cow!
Well, definitely disappointed. They were probably one of the teams that you thought had a shot to win this division, but the way it looks now, it doesn't look that way. I haven't followed them very closely to see what necessarily their struggles are, but watching them against the Reds, it didn't seem like the pitching was doing too hot for them. But I guess this is kind of one of those, we went from the good and now we're at the ugly here, because this division does not look to be very good other than the top 2 there. And I think that quite honestly, if Cleveland gets healthy, if Bieber gets healthy, then I think they'll pull off the divisional win there. But
I like to hear that.
Yeah, I thought you might. But yeah, there's not much to say about this division. I mean, it's it's really a two team race unless something crazy happens here. And I don't know. I mean, Minnesota's kind of pulled it out of the hat a couple of times. Maybe they'll do it again here, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen here for them this year. But hats off to them for the times that they've done it, I guess, in the past.
No doubt about it, man. So I was watching the White Sox. They had a doubleheader the other day. Crazy game because Hector Santiago gets pulled out of the game. I was watching it live, man. I texted you guys this, and the umpire's checking his glove and goes, "You're out of here." And I'm like, "Oh, here we go." You know, here we got the foreign substance stuff. So I haven't heard anything that was in there or anything. I knew he's appealing. I think it's just the rosin that got sticky with the sweat. And I don't know how they're justifying what they're doing and anything like that. I'm not gonna pretend to understand it all, but crazy nonetheless seeing him get booted. It was kind of funny actually. And then Jose Abreu took 96 to the knee. I thought for sure he was gonna be done for a while, was in a lot of pain, but he's day to day. So the White Sox dodged a huge bullet there. They'd have lost him, they would have been in even more trouble. 3-7 week for them, not too good. White Sox fans here are crying. So I think the fans will start to exit stage left when they see Cleveland take over first place. They'll be back to 5,000 fans at White Sox Stadium again, whatever they call that place now. So, yeah, I'm with you, man. Crazy division, very top heavy. In Minnesota, man, we'll see. We'll see. I think they've dug themselves too big of a hole, but
I think so.
about the Twins. So the AL West, man, we got the Astros. First place came out of nowhere last week to take over first place. 7-3 again this week. On fire. The Astros are on fire. The A's are not on fire. 4-6 last 10, game and a half back now. Seattle is on fire. 7-3 and 7 back. 41-38. The Angels are 38-40, 9.5 back, 5-5 in the last 10. And the Rangers are 30-48, 17.5 back, 5-5 weeks. So what's up with the Mariners, man? Can't figure them out. Having a pretty good season, man. This is unreal.
Yeah, and I knew that they were having some success, but I didn't realize that they were doing as well as they have done. And the head scratcher is probably I can't name two Mariners players. So, so apparently something's working for them. It's very surprising to see them there. I kind of thought that the Angels and them would kind of be in flip-flop places there. But the Angels, for whatever reason, can't get it together, which is kind of weird because let me ask you this. Is Shohei Itani the best player in the major leagues right now?
Let me answer you this very quickly. Yes. Because, Matt, here's the thing, man. It's like when you think about the perspective of not only is this guy dominating hitting, he's dominating pitching too. And who's the only other guy in the history of the game to do that? The greatest player of all time, Babe Ruth, So when you're doing that and the word most valuable player comes up, how do you not take the guy who's dominating pitching and hitting? You can't. There's no way around it. He's the MVP right now. It's not even close. Vladdy's unbelievable, but Vladdy doesn't pitch, Vladdy's out there just playing a position, and Otani's giving you 7 innings strong on the mound. It's unbelievable. What a freak.
It will be interesting because as you know, a lot of times these MVP awards are not most valuable player. It's most valuable player on a good team.
Right. That's very true.
If the Angels finish in 4th place in their division, are they going to give the MVP to a player on that team? I'm with you. I think, look at what the guy's doing, and it's unprecedented. I don't think we ever thought we'd see this happen again. And he is just kind of, quite honestly, I think taking the league over by storm here. He's hit 2 more home runs tonight, I guess, from what I hear.
Yep.
He's up to 28 or something now. And like you said, he's pitching lights out. You can talk about all these other guys, Vladdy and Tatis and whoever you want to bring up in that conversation, but nobody's doing what he's doing. And definitely the most exciting player, if not the best. He's definitely the most exciting. So
No doubt about it. He's going to be in the home run derby too, and at the All-Star break, which will be a lot of fun to watch. Him doing that as well. It's unreal, man. I just can't fathom how good he's doing. We've seen a couple guys recently that have tried to do both, and listen, if you're doing both at the major league level, you're awesome, But if you're actually like doing it at the major league level and doing it to the extent that Babe Ruth and Shohei Itani, unheard of, man. Like these two are just the best to ever do it, I believe, and unreal. He's definitely the MVP. Great point on your end on that. So to the
that's
National,
kind of what we've seen in the past. Like the Reds have had, for example, Michael Lorenzen.
Yes, that's what I was trying to think of.
So you've got a guy that's
Yep.
He's a pitcher, but he occasionally hits a home run, and so we can make such a big deal about it. But he's not that great of a pitcher, and he's not that great of a hitter.
Yep.
Then we've had Micah Owings. He was kind of the same thing. He was an okay starter, and he would hit a home run occasionally. And we thought, oh my gosh, this is great. He can hit as a pitcher. But man, you're talking about a guy that legitimately could be the MVP and the Cy Young Award winner.
Yeah.
This is crazy. So hats off, man. You're the man.
He's unbelievable. The ball he hit, I actually saw the first homer tonight. Missile, man. Like just he does not get cheated on his swing either. So to the National,
on some places that people just don't get the bat, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's unreal, man. And David, you need to start being a believer because you have not been a believer of Shohei Itani. It's Shohei time, buddy. Look at me, David. I see you. You still awake back there? The National League East, New York Mets, first place, 4-6 week. The Washington Nationals, Matt, have come back 8-2 in their last 10, 2.5 games back. Atlanta is 4.5 back with a 5-5 week. 5-5 is about sums up their season, doesn't it, Matt? Average. It's just completely where they're at, 500 all year long. Not good at all. Phillies 36-40, 5 back, 3-7. Miami's 33-44, 8.5 back, 4-6 in the last 10. The only thing I want to say about this division this week, let me get a little love to my boy Kyle Schwarber. Holy cow, Matt. This man has 16 bombs in the last 18 games. I don't know if that's ever happened, to be honest with you. I was hearing the perspective of the records. Not sure that's ever happened, man. And he's got 25 bombs, is third in the league in homers and 7th in ribbies. So Kyle Schwarber's a big reason the Nats are climbing, man.
Yep. Yeah, really, like you said, I remember back when I was a kid and Ken Griffey hit a home run in like 4 or 5 straight games, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is so, crazy and awesome. But man, like you just said, that many home runs in that span of games, I've never heard anything close to that. I mean, he's like, you can pretty much put it in the bank, man. He's going to hit a home run every day, is the way it seems like here lately, at least. He's definitely been putting that team on his shoulders for sure. It's
unreal. I was listening to MLB Network to go get some food tonight, and I hear on the radio the numbers. He had 15 homers in his last 17 games, and the MLB radio happened to play the Rays and Nats game as their game tonight for the broadcast, and so in the first inning, I'm hearing, oh, there's a deep drive, and I'm like, this has got to be a highlight, but nope, sure enough, it's Schwarber in the first inning leading off the game with yet another homer to make it 16 and 18 games. Yep. Unbelievable, man. He's carrying that team right now offensively. He's been unreal to every extent of the imagination. Hats off to him. He's been the man. So big reason why they're jumped from 4th place to 2nd place this week. They've had one of the biggest jumps in the standings as far as teams go. They're the biggest jump. So crazy week from them, no doubt. To the NL Central, we've talked about this a little bit already. The Brewers are 8-2 in their last. They are just absolutely on fire, Matt. Took the lead over at 46-33. Pitching staff has been dominant. Top 3 guys are studs. Cubs had a terrible week, 3-7. 4 games back now, 42-37. The Reds have crawled back in it. Still not very good in their last 10, but they're still back in it. 1 game above 500. 4-6 this last week. The Cardinals 38-41, 8 back, 3-7. Love that. Pirates continue to be a minor league team at 29-48, 16.5 back, 6-4 this last 10, so that's pretty good for them. But we've talked at length about this division. But since we've talked about everybody else, what are your thoughts on the Brewers, Matt? I guess we'll kind of go there. They're legit. Are you a believer in the Brewers?
I don't know that I'm quite a believer yet, honestly. I know that's kind of maybe crazy to say, but anything can happen here. You know, they could get a couple guys hurt and they could be where the Reds are right now, and this could totally flip-flop. They I'm looking at their, like for example, their roster right now, and I'm kind of in the same boat I am with them as I am with the Cubs. Like, how are they doing it?
Yeah.
I mean, you got Yelich batting 250, not really having a great year. Other than that, I mean, Osvaldo Garcia, I mean, he's had a productive year. Castiano has been terrible. I don't even know who this guy is for them. Tyrone Taylor. I mean, I don't know. They're obviously doing something right, and I have to believe it's the pitching, because looking at this offensive lineup, I don't see how it's doing it. But I'm still not a believer. Obviously, they're the team to beat right now, and they're, like you said, they're on fire. But I guess part of me hopes that they come back to reality here soon. And it just goes to show you here, just like you were saying, the Cubs are on top of this division. You have a good stretch of 10 games here, and you can put a little distance between you and a team. So if things continue like they do, I mean, they'll be the team to beat. But I just don't. I assume maybe it's just the Reds fan in me, but I think that the Brewers and the Cubs both are going to come back to reality a little bit here, and hopefully that's what happens at least. But
yeah, I agree with you, man.
Their pitchers are studs. I do know that.
Their pitchers they're carrying them. And that bullpen with Leiter, you know, and Devin Williams has been struggling a little bit more than he did last year. That was a freak year last year, but come down to earth a little bit. But man, they're so good. They got a great bullpen. They got great starting pitching. It's carrying them right now. And Yelich hasn't been Yelich, and he's been hurt a lot. And so from the offensive perspective, I don't get it at all. Like you're saying, Castiano, terrible defensively at first base. They're just trying to plug him in somewhere to get his bat in the lineup a little bit. But man, I don't know. Give Craig Counsell more credit, I guess. That's what we always seem to have to do with the Brewers, is give him the credit, man, because he finds a way, my man. I don't know how he does it, but it's nuts. And then we rounded off with the NL West, and this is fun, as always. The Giants in first, 50-28, 7-3 in the last 10. Unbelievable season by them. The Dodgers are 48-31, 2.5 back, 6-4. The Padres are on fire, 47-33, 4 games back, 9-1 in the last 10. Colorado is 32-47, 18.5 back, 4-6. Arizona 22-58, poor guys, 29 back, 2-8 in the last 10. So here's the thing, Matt. I heard this the other day, and it's kind of funny actually. You're going to get your 2 wild cards out of this division in the National League. So the way it's looking right now anyway, and those 2 teams would have to play each other. So imagine the Padres and the Dodgers, if it holds up like it is right now. A 1-game playoff. You eliminate one of those 2 teams in the first day of the playoffs, and then the winner gets the Giants. So that's how it's going to go if it stays like this, which is absolutely insane to think of when you think of it from that perspective. But man, you better win your division in the Central, and you better win that division in the East, man, because the way, I mean, the Giants were the team we're looking at as not making the playoffs, and they're not going anywhere. We're about halfway there. They're legit, man, and I don't know how they're doing it. I continue to be baffled by them, but it's happening, and there's no denying it when you're 50-28 halfway through the year. So,
yeah,
that's
totally surprising to me. I mean, how are they doing it? I mean, this isn't a team that anybody had any expectations for.
Nope.
And man, they're just they're doing something though. Even like guys like Yastrzemski's not even had a good year. So I'm just like wondering like who's carrying the load for them. I mean, and it's not like they're playing cream puffs. I mean, they're in the NL West.
Yeah.
They're playing the Dodgers and the Padres. So how are you doing it unless they're just feasting off of the bottom two? I don't know. I don't know if their schedule has been favorable or not, but I mean, I guess you would assume that they would, like you said, they would come back to earth a little bit, but I think they've built such a large lead that they can afford to stumble and still probably make the playoffs. So hats off to them, man. I did not see that coming at all.
I did not either, man. And it's kind of what is a little bit scary when the Cubs struggle with the Brewers here and start getting pushed back a little bit is you got to kind of understand that the way it's looking is you better win your divisions and the other two because this West is for real, man. And that's a good point you made about the Giants getting to play the Rockies and the Diamondbacks a whole lot, which definitely helps. But at the same time, they're playing the Padres and the Dodgers a lot. So kind of evens itself out division wise. And then you go outside the division where that's kind of where you separate yourself. And they've obviously been doing a good job against other teams. So it's crazy, man. I don't get it. They're 26-11 at home, 24-17 on the road. So they're playing good at home and on the road. Their run differential is 99 on the positive. So they're doing everything right in San Francisco, man. It's crazy. It's legit. And it's a lot of fun, man. So there's your standings, Matt. There's where we stand going into the halfway point. We get back to our next podcast, and we will be past the halfway point. So it's a lot of fun, man. I always watch the standings. I know a lot of people say, I don't care about the standings till Labor Day. I'm not like that. I watch them every single day, see where everybody's at on a daily basis because it's a lot of fun to just see people jumping up and down, and the standings move a lot more than you think. So, well, Matt, unless you got anything to add, buddy, I think that about wraps the show up for tonight. Thank you very much for coming on, man, and hopefully, David will be back next week and he can tell us all his A-Rod stories about how much fun they had on the coast, hanging out.
Yeah.
They're probably at the beach right now. I think they just had a nice walk on the beach together to the little bromance they got going on. So I can't wait for story time on that, Matt.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks again, man. And thanks to all of our fans out there. Please like our YouTube page, subscribe to it, and give us some views here. We appreciate it. Everybody have a great night.